Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next panel at this DrupalCon Global. We're going to talk about Drupal on the front lines of COVID-19. My name is Michael Schmidt, or people also call me under the name Schnitzel. I'm the CTO of Amazingio, but today I'm really in a capacity to be the moderator for this panel with really great panelists. We want to talk about how did Drupal help on the front lines of COVID. We have a really nice, diverse team of different people all over the world that you will hear about that use Drupal to help in some way or capacity with Drupal to help COVID-19. We're going to do a short introduction, who everybody is, and also they will tell us about their projects, how they were involved in these crazy times in the last couple of months, what has changed. We're going to start with Adela from OpenSocial.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Adela, and I'm OpenSocial's market development representative. Give me a shout out in the comments if you're familiar with OpenSocial. OpenSocial is built with Drupal, and my role in OpenSocial is that I take care of all of incoming requests for OpenSocial. So everything is usually I'm the first point of touch. And already at the beginning of COVID-19, we quickly realized the increase of demand for community software, because OpenSocial is community software which helps connect members, companies, volunteers, and employees together. And we also can do that very quickly. So we had this first week, and we also had to start working from home, of course. And it was the first week that we were working from home. And a biotechnology innovation organization reached out to us, and they really needed a platform to connect the entities who don't have enough resources with the resources with the organizations that can actually provide these resources. So they needed something that was really simple, that could host a lot of traffic, but also get the right information to the right people. And this was one of the projects, so to handle kind of the crisis of the COVID-19, of what it did to the world. And secondly, we also had another project that responded to the second wave of the coronavirus, which was a little more for the economic impact, for example, poverty and world hunger. So that we partnered with the United Nations, which was also our existing client already, and we collaborated on a platform which is now Spark Blue. And that connects all of United Nations employees, which is around 40,000 employees. And it also connects their internal and external systems to communicate together, so they can quickly get access to the data, share knowledge together, and also quickly react on what is happening in the world and save it together. So my part in those projects, of course, for the biotechnology innovation organizations, I was one of the first, and we decided to do that together. We stayed up very late to also handle with the time zones. And for the Spark Blue, I was supporting, and I just know what happened, but I wasn't very much involved with the project on hand. But that's a little bit about me, and I think we can move forward.
Cool, thank you. Next one, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening or good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Paul Johnson. I'm PD Johnson, most places on the internet. I'm a director at CTR Digital. We're a Drupal specialist agency in the UK, in Manchester. I'm here to talk about the Arts Council for England. They're a government-based body dedicated to promoting the performing, visual and literary arts in England. And CTI are proud to have been their development partner for since 2017. The Arts Council are responsible for ensuring billions of pounds of government funding is invested wisely to help create art and culture experiences for everyone, everywhere. Immediately prior to lockdown, the Arts Council had a really big focus on the launch of their Let's Create 10-year strategy for the arts and culture in England. So the site was full of very impressive and ambitious graphics, and very much a vibrant website, and very aspirational. Suddenly, on March the 16th, the government mandated the closure of all arts and culture venues, meaning in turn that there was an immediate and complete loss of all income for many tens of thousands of people in the sector. There was a huge and urgent need for information. As the central body for the arts and culture funding, everyone turned their eyes to the Arts Council. There was a lot of, obviously it's a rapidly changing situation, and the government were kind of having to work out how to act. But by March the 24th, several days later, the government announced £160 million worth of funding to protect arts bodies, freelancers, and freelancers as the coronavirus hit revenues. And it had to be made available via the Arts Council website. So today we're going to explain exactly how we achieved that, and thanks to Drupal and their small team, how they went about a nationwide emergency response, and thus helping to protect the livelihoods of thousands of people in that sector.
Cool. Thank you. Great project. Then next, Christina.
Hi, everyone. I am Christina Costello. I'm a lead developer at Redfin Solutions, which is a Drupal agency located in Portland, Maine in the United States. And I was the team lead and also a developer on a relatively small but important and interesting project that we worked on this spring. We were approached by a nonprofit here in Maine called the Rural Aspirations Project. And their work is really about expanding educational opportunities, particularly in rural areas of the state. And particularly by connecting students to community-based resources. So organizations around the state like the Audubon and coastal heritage groups, even individuals, artists. And due to the school closures, there was a bit of panic around the state due to the inability to meet in classrooms. Parents and guardians suddenly had to homeschool while working, while continuing their daily lives. And it was quite a struggle at first, and Rural Aspirations identified a need to have a platform to connect families and educators to educational resources and activities for students, especially in rural areas, given that connecting is difficult enough in that case. So we helped them out with a Drupal 8 site. They had been operating on a popular online website building tool that they were outgrowing the capabilities of. They were certainly starting to need a content management system. So that's where Drupal came in. And we had to do this very rapidly. We had less than a month to take it from discovery to launch. So we used just core and a handful of contributed modules and stuck to out-of-the-box functionality wherever possible. And an important goal for the site was to allow organizations to enter their own content so that the Rural Aspirations team could get back to doing their consultancy work and working with the community directly instead of spending all day managing their new website. So we were able to do this really quickly for them, and it was a really fun project to work on. The team over there was really engaging and really passionate about their work. And today they connect 95 organizations around the state of Maine to students all over the state.
Oh, awesome. And last but not least, Toby.
Hi, I can say good morning because I'm based in Canberra, Australia, and it is very morning here. I'm the product lead for Amazingio, but probably most relevance to this panel, I'm also the former technical lead at the GovCMS program here in Australia. For those that aren't familiar already, GovCMS is it's managed by the Australian Government Department of Finance, and it provides a whole of government platform for Drupal websites. It's been around for 5 years, and as of the other week, there's over 300 frontline transactional websites hosted on GovCMS, and these range from Department of Health websites, information about government services, communications, infrastructure, all those kind of normal government things. At a federal level, so Australia's got federal, state, and local government tiers. So we provide a whole of government service for that. Amazingio and their partner CTR Digital provide the service to the Department of Finance. And what my part of this this story is how to handle unprecedented demand for government websites. The need to be authoritative. People are turning to government to get the information they need about arts funding, about coronavirus statistics, about education, about employment, all of these things, people are going straight to the source to try and find out what they need to do. So it sort of started early in sort of late in January. We started to see traffic surging towards the travel related parts of government, and you can sort of follow that curve all the way through for the last 6 months. So what I'll be talking about is how the GovCMS program weathered that storm, how the platform that that was selected, so Lagoon is Amazingio's hosting platform, why that was some of the decisions made around selecting a platform that is scalable and can handle, I think the original documentation said momentary surges in traffic. 5 months later, that traffic is still surging. There was a really good case study released last week by the Department of Finance that said some of these websites are seeing 600% increases in traffic. And this has been sustained for well, yeah, we're at now 5 months, and websites that were seeing a few 100,000 visitors normally in a month, at the peak we're seeing tens of millions of visitors, and those websites are still seeing tens of millions of visitors every month. So how do you build a platform, keep a platform running? But we'll also go a little bit into the underlying principle of GovCMS, which is that we'll call it create once and share with everyone, but there's a really strong Drupal community inside government here in Australia. So we'll talk a little bit about how Drupal has become really mainstream in government and what the enduring legacy of Drupal through this COVID period is.
Cool, thank you. All right, so the first question I have for you, Christina, is my understanding that you built a completely new website for that your project was about. Tell us a bit, like, what did you use in Drupal? Why, how helped or how made Drupal this possible to build a new completely website, probably in quite some short amount of time?
Sure. So we have heard from the content managers that they are able to set up accounts and train new content editors in under 10 minutes, that the interface for those content editors is extremely intuitive and easy to use. And that's been what she called really simple but powerful. And how often have we had clients describe Drupal as simple? It's been really cool to see that we could set something up configured with Drupal that is so easy to use. And we were able to, given this small scale of the site, to start use the Claro theme for the admins, and they've been delighted with it. They really have had no complaints. And another big win was content moderation being part of core, that we were able to set that up so quickly, and they could apply a straightforward approval process for their content editors. So trusted organizations can add their own content, and then the nonprofit itself can approve that content. We're able to do that so rapidly that we were able to spend a lot more time on the important part of discovery and UX and wireframing, so that we can be sure to build the right site for them, not just, you know, any site to get it up and running in the short time that we had.
Mm-hmm. What was the reaction from the customer? I believe they were quite surprised when they saw how fast you built, like, whole workflows of approvals and things like that. How did they react?
They were really delighted. They have been endlessly thankful for what we've been able to put together for them. I reached out to them about this panel, letting them know that I was going to be discussing their project, and asked them if they had any feedback for me, and they sent just reams of passionate responses, especially from community members that are using the site. They have posts on their social media of people thanking them for existing and doing this. So cool. It's been really cool to watch.
Cool. So Drupal was a good tool set in your belt too.
Mm-hmm. And it sets them up for, there's a lot of long-term potential now that they're on Drupal. So we plan to layer in added functionality in the future. We've talked about new features that we could add using other Drupal, you know, just the Drupal ecosystem really opens up a lot of opportunity there. So.
Cool. Awesome. Mm-hmm. All right, over to Paul. So tell us a bit, what have you built for the arts? What was the actual project? How did it work? What did you use of Drupal to, I guess my understanding is, how did the give out all this money that they committed to?
Yeah, I mean, that's partly what the site is designed to do in the first place. Is normally they have lottery funding, so there's millions of pounds each year that's issued out to members of the arts sector. But the site, when we went into lockdown, was in this much more celebratory mode. They pretty much spent the last 3 months building out this area. The main part of the site was about their new strategy. So they were in no way, shape or form in a position to be able to service that very high traffic. So what they actually did was they had this strategy. So phase one was the response, so try and protect as much as they could in the short term whilst they plan for what comes next. So the first thing they did was they changed the homepage to put the minimal information out, and they put one page up so that there was a header that was put up, which we actually used Google Tag Manager to inject rather than using Drupal. Because, of course, we support many organisations, and all of a sudden everyone wanted our developers. So because we're quite a large company, we have people in the marketing team. So we had to be quite nimble and clever as to how we created an answer to these problems. Because high availability was really critical. We needed to try and use what was there rather than develop new things, because that would take time and introduce risk. And actually, the team at the Arts Council that were running all of this is only 2 people. So fortunately, in about 2017, we went through this process of redeveloping their site away from a page-based paradigm using Drupal paragraphs. So they did have a library of paragraphs so that they could build out pages to address different types of need. So they pivoted from this highly media-heavy approach to a very minimal approach, so that the load time on the pages was small, and also it was available on mobile devices much easier. And then they had to obviously pretty much build out a whole site to service the evolving needs and as government policy changed. One issue that they had was they created the initial application forms rapidly, where they're using a SaaS-based service, and it all looked good. And then they put it out onto Twitter, and then literally thousands of people hit this SaaS service, which shall remain unnamed. And there was this big service unavailable announcement. Now they phoned us up and said the website's down, but actually what it was just this link system. So the good news was that we actually had web form installed, but it wasn't being used. So we were able to rapidly train them, and a bit like how Christina's described, we gave them some minimal training, and they were able to build out these forms themselves. And one of the really important things was that the way that we redesigned the site was for high availability, and really crucially, it was accessible, because all public sector sites have to be compliant with the new regulations that were brought in 2018. And as the site that everyone looks towards, they need to be seen as setting the example. And of course, it needed to be secure. We're talking about applications where there's millions of pounds potentially being distributed, and be digitally inclusive. So it had to not only be accessible, but be available to anyone on any device. So, and regardless of their internet connection. So we had to work within those legislations, but also work really, really fast.
Cool.
So
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So Toby, question to you. We heard just web form helped save the day. Do you have an example? What tool, module, feature of Drupal helped the Australian government to survive? The million of people want to have information.
I think the important thing is that, and sort of echoing a little bit what Christina said, the Drupal can be simple. So Drupal is a very stable content management system. Where we really were pushing the limits of what Drupal can do is how Drupal can utilize infrastructure. Particularly, we over the course of as the project evolved, we implemented Redis caching in front of databases. We were doing hot database cluster upgrades in the middle of the business day, which is normally an absolute horror story, but because we got the team and because we understood the platform and because we got the buy-in from the government agencies hosting their sites, we could do this kind of stuff with Drupal. And if you're looking at 187,000 sort of concurrent users, if you're looking at tens of millions of page views, every single percentage you can squeeze out of caching, so there's CDNs in place, all of our content editors are now that much better at watching those numbers and working out how to optimize and working out how to do image optimization and working out how to, and particularly, I suppose, these sites are a mix of Drupal 7 and Drupal 8. Drupal 8 makes it so easy with the cache tags to be able to do sort of the purging, but Drupal 7, you've really got to be good. And the level of the ability of Drupal to be able to serve these multiple needs has been really incredible. It would have been the easy option to dump these sites out to a static page that can cache until whenever, but to provide that content experience, because there's now 3 times as many people editing content as pages as there were before. So being able to, the 10-minute training, it's really true for a content editor. Someone can pick up how to edit a page in Drupal in 10 minutes. So they can expand their team, they can get more people reviewing, they can sort of strengthen their content management workflows. Particularly, the message has got to be absolutely right. And if it's being read by hundreds of thousands of people at the same time, it's got to be right first time. And Drupal really includes all the tools that you need to be able to do that. So it's been a really good experience, I think.
Cool, thank you. Adela, a question for you. We talked about now projects being a bit special and coordination. How was your project? My understanding is you usually onboard people, like that's a normal thing you do, but how was this different this time for you?
Yeah. So like our typical sales process usually takes a bit longer because then with the software, of course, there's more stakeholders involved who have to decide not only from our side, from OpenSocial, but also from the client. Typically, there's a few discussions and we have to do multiple meetings to actually align if it works with the concept and if it works with all of the policies. But in this case, because it was such a pressing, urgent matter, because we've all seen it, stores just started running out of stuff out of nowhere, and that's the same for hospitals and for laboratories. So we really needed to do that quickly. And because the timeline for this project was actually, they reached out to us the first time on a Monday, and then on Tuesday, we scheduled the first call. On Wednesday, we set up the platform, and on Thursday, we were live with the platform. So this was all done within 48 hours. And this was also considering that we're based in the Netherlands and Bio is based in the US. We had to really align with the time zones differently and how to communicate with the projects. As well, typically there's like contracting involved, but in this case, we didn't really have the time to do that. So we kind of said, okay, well, let's just trust each other and then we will sort of solve these issues later, but let's just work on getting this project live to actually help people first. So that's what really stood out for us there.
Wow, great. Cool. And how did you, how was the reception of the people? I assume some of the people use Drupal, like there are editors that create content. We heard now that actually many people said that the Drupal is quite easy to use to onboard something. Is there something similar that you saw?
Yes. So typically it is a bit more difficult to explain to people how to work with it, because if you're not familiar with Drupal, it's all of a sudden all these buttons and I don't know what to do with them. But I think they were a bit familiar with it, at least the contact person that we were speaking to, but the rest of the organization wasn't so much. But we focused on the specific use case. So in this use case, we use just a topic and it needs to have the right taxonomy and it needs to be assigned to the right group. So this was just the workflow, and this is a really easy workflow for people to understand. And we also configure that if a person says, okay, I have this many resources and I can share it, then it just gets automatically filed. And if they say I have resources, it automatically gets tagged with the right tags. Okay. So that's kind of also how we customized it and how Drupal helps with that.
Cool. So very similar to what we heard from you, Christina, that really thinking about who needs to see which buttons, can I hide them, can I remove them, to make it as easy as possible for people that have never have seen a Drupal interface. That could, if you show every single field and every single setting, could definitely be overwhelming, but removing them and making them easier for them. So Christina, question for you. You mentioned that there was a whole team. One question from the stage was, how big was the team that you worked in? And also, maybe can you tell us a bit, like, how was the project different compared to others? Like, did you work different hours? Because my understanding is also you had to go remote at the same time.
Yeah, so we had just all gone remote. We usually work in an office 9 to 5 all together. So we grabbed what we could from the office, grabbed equipment, chairs, things like that, and set up shop at home. And, you know, things were a little uncertain for a while. We were seeing clients make adjustments in how many hours they were committing to work with us, but we fortunately didn't lose much work in general. We got a lot of new work. This one was a great test case for us to take a project from scratch to live this quickly, working remotely, refine our processes so we could continue to do that. And because things were a little bit, we were adapting. The original team assigned to it was just a front-end developer and a site builder, with me being the team lead, so just mostly managing the discovery and user story aspect, things like that, the flow of the project. But we did shift the team around. We shuffled a little bit, and I hopped on toward the end to be a power themer to get us through and live on time. So it did work a little hard that last weekend to get it up and running and looking clean, but it was pretty smooth. So about
Cool.
3 of us, yeah.
Nice, good job. Paul, how did you work? Like, how was it before COVID and during this project? How did your work environment change as a company?
Well, it changed for us and also for our clients. We pride ourselves on the face-to-face relationship we have with our clients. So they're mainly in Manchester in the Northwest and down in London. And we spend a lot of time with our clients, particularly in workshops, and we have a specialist a strategy team and user experience designers, and so very much a close relationship with clients. Now, obviously, when lockdown happened, our entire team, based mostly in Manchester, moved to remote, and so did our clients. So it was very much a new thing for our clients, but it was. It's actually been really constructive as far as how we've managed to expedite conversations. There have been no traveling, and once their initial challenges around getting used to these different online collaboration tools was overcome, it's actually works to everyone's advantage, really.
Cool. And are you still working remote today as a team?
Oh yeah. I mean, we're not looking to rush back, actually. Whereas traditionally CTI has been very much fixated on this office-based culture. It's surprising as a manager, I seem to have formed a closer relationship individually with all of my team. It's been a very positive experience.
Cool. Toby, similar question to you. How was the remote work with the customers? Like, for me as if I would put an outside hat on, I would not believe the government works from home or like jumps on a Zoom call in the middle of the night. How did this change? Like, were boundaries broken because of the urgency here?
I mean, I actually think it presented an incredible opportunity. One of the things that was done at the very start of the pandemic, as it started to break out, is that the GovCMS program identified that we were going to really need to closely support our content publishers and our agency customers. So basically, a sort of team was stood up between the GovCMS team in the Department of Finance, between the CTR Digital.
Oh, I think we lost the connection to Australia. Let's see, give it a couple of seconds. We always make the joke that there's probably a shark somewhere that bites the sea cables. So looks like it's a good shark this time. All right, let's continue. Adela, how was it for you? You mentioned that you had a remote customer in another country even, but how did it change for the team? Did you used to have an office that you all saw each other?
Yes, so we were already allowed to work from home, but we of course had a limit as to how much we can work from home. So that was like only 30%. And most of us did not actually work from home because it's so much easier to connect in the office. And if you need to say something, you just turn around and ask them. So also that was the first week that we had to start working from home, and it was a bit difficult in terms of communication because we're quite used to just telling each other things right after something happens, and then it takes a lot more time to write a message than to say a sentence in person. So that was a little difficult. We had some kind of at the beginning we did have issues that like teams decided something and forgot to brief the other teams, but we quickly kind of made the turnaround, realized the mistakes, and actually made it work. And now we're still working from home partially, although some of our colleagues do go to work. Personally, I have to travel a bit further to the office, so I still don't go because I prefer to stay away from public transport for now. But we're slowly getting back into the flow and starting to open up a little more back into the world.
All right, slowly getting back to normality.
Yeah.
Good. One of the last questions that I'm really interested in is hearing, do you have an example of how your project actually impacted the people that visit the sites, or something that you really was unexpected that happened during this project regarding people using the websites? Christina?
Sure. So I heard from the nonprofit that owns the site. Through the site, they were able to connect a Portland-based comic book artist with a rural 6th grade class, and they together virtually created comic strip material based on their own coronavirus experiences. And I think that's like a super cool way to process what's going on in the world, especially for a kid. It must be pretty confusing. I know it's confusing for me. So I thought that was a really great story, and they have lots like that. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, maybe we should all learn how to write comics to handle and also remember these times, because I think we're gonna forget as well. Toby, welcome back. Looks like the shark that is eating on the undersea cable wasn't that good.
I got a message from my internet provider saying they're experiencing an outage in the middle of my outage. So I might just finish the point that I started before I disappeared, and that's that remote work has allowed all of these teams to be together in one place as a normal thing. So rather than flying consultants around the world and trying to get the right people in the right place and tee up schedules, we're all available. And so if someone's got a question, they could reach out. And we set up groups on the various collaboration platforms, and someone in an agency in a group with the infrastructure engineers could say, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Is this a crazy idea? And I think that kind of collaboration would have been really, really hard to do without us all being forced into a more collaborative way. So I think it's kind of laid a path for the future a little bit, made it more normal.
Yep, I definitely. Paul?
Yeah, I mean, to answer the question about the impact, the issues around the whole art sector having to shut down was regular daily news. It was very apparent that some people were facing a very desperate situation as far as their personal finances. And that was specifically what the Arts Council's role was. But another thing which really struck me was it really brought home the importance of the whole cultural and art sector in people's lives and their well-being. And there was actually a program aired during the whole of lockdown with Grayson Perry, who's an artist, and it was engaging with the members of the public and getting them FaceTiming onto the TV program. And it really, really sort of like doubled my understanding of how important it was to people's mental health during this period. And I think one of the big impacts will be that out of this, now that the government have introduced this £1.57 billion worth of funding for the arts, it's actually going to reinvent itself as it comes out and be much stronger as a consequence.
Wow. So would you say that this probably has to do also with how good the website handled, that they now invested more money in it?
Yeah, well, they've used the website to canvass opinion of the arts and culture sector, both individuals and very large national organisations, as to how that money should be invested. So there's been like this public consultation with the sector, because of course this policy is evolving as time passes. They want to make sure that it's being used most wisely and appropriately.
Cool. All right, Adela, do you have an example?
Yes, I was just going to say, but like the BioHub, what we actually saw, like immediately it started to get a lot of traffic and of course a lot of people asking for resources. And by now there are over 1,200 members, and the platform handled more than 400 requests. And that's how we know it actually made impact. We of course don't have direct contact with the end users, but I believe it made a big impact. And with the other project that we had with Sport Blue, which connected all of United Nations employees, which was already, I think that speaks for itself, to connect all of the employees all over the world. With the world becoming more and more decentralized, now we're trying to get it back together to connect.
Cool. All right. Okay, we're already finished. Oh yeah, Toby, go ahead.
I think the primary measure of success for government websites is that they're the authoritative source. I think we live in a time when people get information from an awful lot of places, but generally people trust governments. And for the websites that are running on these platforms to make sure that they're the place that people go to, they've got to be the place that people go to get the most current and up-to-date information. And the agencies running these sites have to be confident in their infrastructure. I think what this period has demonstrated is that, yeah, government can be, it can, we've all heard the stories of government websites falling apart under pressure. I think we've really managed to put this to bed over the last few months, and massively unprecedented time, but we've built sites and we've built a platform that can host this kind of surge in demand. So yeah, I think for the agencies being able to trust that they can get their message out well, and it echoes a little bit of what Paul's done, there's a mechanism for making sure that people can access the information they need to at the time they need to. And yeah, it's a level of confidence both ways.
Cool. All right, we're already nearing the last question. So for the last question for all of us, what is something that you learned during this project or during the pandemic in general? Is it for your company, for you personally, that you really think will change or shape the future? How you work, how you types of customers. So a silver lining of all of the horrible things that happened, but that we find for the future. Paul?
I think one of the things that's been a triumph in this situation is that the investment that the client made in refactoring their site some time ago, and the way that we approached it, not just solving a client will always ask for something specifically, what they need, and they'll want a specific thing in response. What we try and do is to respond in a way that's a bit more flexible, so that it's more an open solution. And what we did was, it was very fortunate that we built a system which was able to solve many different challenges. I suppose what I'm trying to say is that think about building flexible and open systems that help to solve the problems of the future and not just the ones that you face right in front of you.
Cool. So a manifestation that building flexible systems will help you in the future, and that's something you're going to continue to do.
Yeah, I think it's our responsibility as an agency and as maybe the Drupal project to be thinking much more broadly. The client doesn't always know what's best for them.
Yeah. Christina, you mentioned that you actually got some additional projects out of the one that you did.
Yeah. So this was a bit of an unusual client for us. We typically do much larger scale work with larger organizations and spend, a good part of a year on a project like this. So this was an opportunity to really give back to our community right here in Maine. Not a lot of our clients are even in our home state. So that was really, I thought, a good move for us as a team and as an agency. And I think another thing that I learned was even though it can feel risky, logically it's the right thing to do to spend a lot more time on discovery and UX and planning. Especially as a developer, I want to get right in there and build the thing. But it can be really valuable to be patient and take your time in the beginning phases of a project. So you're sure you're building the right thing, not spending time building unuseful features, things like that.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
And yeah, it has led to a much larger project for a much larger organization here in Maine. So a referral made itself back around. So it's been good.
Cool. Good job. Adela, something you learned?
Yes. So it wasn't so much what we learned new from it, but what it actually confirmed that was real. For example, that the world is becoming more and more decentralized, but we still need to find a way how to connect everybody. And we also knew that with OpenSocial, we can set up platforms quickly, but to also be able to prove it and actually do it in practice and within 48 hours. We were also internally, of course, very happy about that. And also to see the success of the platform. That's something definitely that we will take together for the future with us.
Cool.
I think from the largest takeaway for GovCMS is that we've now got a large base of people who are now used to doing this, to building battle-tested sites. And sort of Paul echoed how to. It doesn't necessarily have to be complicated. Simple wins. We've now got a much larger contingent of people who are singing from the same hymn sheet. Keep it simple. Make sure that it can scale. And I think having more of that knowledge across more agencies and across more people, it's going to be good, and it's going to demonstrate the ongoing viability of Drupal as a CMS, of the platforms we run. And yeah, instead of being a niche skill, the more people that are scale ninjas out there, the better it is, I think.
Cool. All right, that's good to hear. All right, I thank all of you, Christina, Paul, Adela, and Toby, for either staying up late or getting up very early. Thanks for sharing these deep insights into your projects. And I think this showed how Drupal can help in unprecedented cases. Is it now a site that needs to scale a lot, need to build a new site, or existing tooling can enable things that were maybe not meant for before? So that's really good to hear, and I think gives all of us a good feeling to go in the future of Drupal and continue using it. And I think, like we've heard, also like continue investing into it to make it flexible, scalable, and usable. So I thank all of you, and also thanks for everybody that listened to us. And I wish you all a really good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.